What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and this week we're going to look into the heart of men and see what evil lurks there. I'm joined by Matt once again. How you doing, Matt? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah. I'm all pumped. I'm sort of the ghost that walks. You know, I'm feeling the power of 10 men. This week we're going to round out our Pulp hero sort of 90s film retrospective with 1994's The Shadow and 1997's The Phantom. And I've got fond memories of one of these and less so of the other. However, having watched them both this time, I'm going to admit it up front, I quite enjoyed these.
I enjoyed one of these.
Did you?
I
don't know which. I don't know which at this point, because they're both very, very silly.
Yeah.
One more so than the other. But well, let's start with The Shadow. So, what do you know of The Shadow? And I mean, do you remember this film?
Yeah, I do remember it. I have sort of vivid memories of that terrifying knife that really scared me as a kid. Like I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember anything else from the film other than that horrible knife.
So the one that the sort of the Khan has.
Yeah, so it's like a little face and with massive teeth and it bites him.
All it reminded me of was, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a film called Young Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And there's a section in that film where they sort of, people start to hallucinate things, and just seeing that the blade sort of like, make it with the little blade face on the handle moving and stuff just reminded me of that. Okay, so The Shadow from 1994. I remember this coming out. I was sort of early teens, so I remember it sort of being quite a popular film, and it being a bit of a thing, because obviously we were waiting for Batman. We had Batman Returns. We were waiting on the next one. So this was, I think that's what this was trying to do. It was trying to fill that gap, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you can tell it's like it almost stinks of Batman. I know that's like something we've said about a couple of the others. But this one is probably the closest to it, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing. We're almost like, we're 5 years away from the first Batman film and sort of 2 from Batman Returns. But that Tim Burton-esque sort of pulp styling is so, like I say, it just hangs over everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, really, really distinct.
Yeah. I mean, Alec Baldwin in this is basically playing Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. But I think it also says a lot about about Batman as a character, and because it's not necessarily that far from the source material, is it?
No, it's not. Well, actually, the scene on the bridge, when he saves the guys, so you got the gangsters are sort of like they're going to try they've got him in literally got him in a concrete block, and they're going to throw him off the bridge into the river. And then the Shadow sort of comes in and sort of does that thing, he beats all the guys up and all that sort of stuff. That is directly from the first pulp novel of the Shadow.
Right. That's cool. I liked that bit.
That's about the only thing that comes from the novel, so that's why it sort of works.
Yeah. It's a good. That's it. It opens on that scene, doesn't it?
Yes, sort of pretty much. I mean, the first scene is actually, you get almost like a little flashback, don't you, of Alec Baldwin in grubby Alec Baldwin in some distant Nepal or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. It's weird, isn't it? Like his whole backstory is very strange.
Well, it's never really explained. It's sort of
No,
alluded to, isn't it?
yeah, I
You know,
think it relies on you understanding it before you go in. It feels like.
I would agree. I agree. I think there's almost like you need some pre-knowledge to understand who this character is. Like, so the guy's called, so Alec Baldwin plays the Shadow, but also like his alter ego is Lamont Cranston, um, and the Shadow. I'll give you a bit of history. The Shadow's got a weird backlog because in the pulp novels, very much so, Lamont Cranston is the alter ego. They sort of simplified it.
Yeah,
But in the original radio story, when he finally got his own show, because originally he was just a narrator for another crime series. Um, he was Kent Allard, Kent Allard, and he was a sort of a fighter pilot from World War One who had sort of, for whatever purposes, ends up in the Far East, and it becomes corrupted. And Lamont Cranston is just one of the names he uses when he's back in New York, and then obviously
right.
becomes the Shadow. So there's a whole host of stuff that sort of sits behind it, and
Yeah,
they've simplified it even further for the film, really.
yeah, and I mean it's weird because I think I've read a couple of the comics for it,
Mm.
more recent ones. Well, I say more recent ones. I've read the Garth Ennis run and the first Howard Chaykin
Mm.
run. Both quite different,
Yes.
but I still didn't feel like it. Like it always feels like I don't really know what's going on. Like I don't really know the actual story, and this film was kind of similar.
No, it's true. I mean, like when you look back at some of the other films we've watched, like the setup is incredibly simple. Like
Yeah,
with Batman, you get all that information about his childhood and everything's like literally the sort of the point of the film. Dick Tracy's just Dick Tracy. In like Darkman, you see his origin. The Rocketeer, you get his origin. With this, it's just sort of constantly alluded to, but
yeah,
never um, really spelt out, is it? I mean, you get a flash of him as a soldier, sort of like covered in
yeah.
blood and sort of stuff. But other than that,
Even then, he's wearing like some sort of imperial Chinese armor, and he's got like
yeah,
a massive like spear that he's attacking people with. So still, you don't feel like you're like, what is going on?
no, I almost feel like this is one of the first times in where they've gone. You know what? We'll cover that in the sequel. Like we'll
Yeah,
drop hints and we'll cover it in the sequel. And there was never going to be one.
I think it
Um,
doesn't. You never feel like you don't get like you still feel like you know where his powers come from and stuff like that. They covered that quite well.
yes,
It's just the whole sort of the fact that it shows you him being evil and stuff like that. That's where you're a bit like, I don't understand why that is. I have a vague idea. You have enough of an idea to get on with sort of the story,
yeah.
but not enough to establish it.
Well, one of the things I find that's weird about this film that is that, like I say, the one thing they do establish is he's become the Shadow. He's been given these powers of the ability to shadow men's minds and stuff. Um, been taught these things, and then basically told that this is a story of redemption. Like you are going to go out and save, and be a good man and use these powers for good to make up for all the sort of evil that you've done for this 7-year period, this decade of decadence that you've had.
Yeah,
You're going to go off and do this. And then at one point in the film, like he literally says, oh, I do this to sort of keep the darkness in check. And it's sort of like you're being told that, but at no point does he come across as a sort of like, yeah, I'm a really troubled person. He's just sort of
yeah,
like, no, I'm happy-go-lucky Alec Baldwin, as always.
yeah. I suppose when he's fighting crime, that's when it's a bit
Mm.
darker. Him as a character, but they never really. It's another thing that you kind of like. I don't understand why they did that. Is the changing of his face when he becomes the Shadow?
Well, this is where the casting of Alec Baldwin is both fun and a problem, because ever since the 30s, when they sort of the pulp novels were coming out, they had those. I'm sure you've seen them, like the covers of these pulp things are really lurid and they're really colourful and that sort of thing. And the Shadow, I can't remember the guy's name, but there was an artist who was the Street and Smith was the company who sort of published these things, and they basically sort of go to this artist and were like, "Look, here's the book, give us a cover. Just do it. You've got a week or whatever. Just bang out a cover." And that was this guy's job, and he would do it, and they're great covers. And he sort of invented the look of the Shadow. So the things like the hat has always been there, but the red scarf around his mouth, that was all part and parcel of the cover. That didn't get mentioned. I mean, it really only gets mentioned in the stories later because of these covers. And so they invented this very distinct look, and it had like the hooked nose, the piercing eyes, the slender face, and all that. And you go, so that's the Shadow. So when he's drawn, I don't know if you thought, if you've having read the comics, when he is just Lamont Cranston, like he's still got that slender face, hooked nose, and all that sort of stuff.
Toned down.
Yeah, but in this, it's like it goes from being Alec Baldwin to some sort of like. Unfortunately, I watched this on Blu-ray. The prosthetics don't hold up to high definition.
Absolutely not.
So yeah, there would have been better people, I think, to hire to play the Shadow.
It's one of them things where I feel like they should have just ditched that. So you just give him the scarf, give him the hat. You don't need the nose. Like it doesn't matter that it's not like you'd be fine. You'd get it. You'd watch it and you'd be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
If you can believe that Superman can take his glasses off and become Superman, then you can believe that he can wear a scarf around his face and he doesn't have to look.
People won't recognise him.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think you could have even done it with a touch of makeup. Sort of like make his eyes look a bit deeper or whatever. Like there'd be ways and means. I mean, it comes back to what I watched. Actually, it comes up in the film we're going to talk about next. But the thing, obviously, in Batman Returns, when you got Batman with his cowl on and his dark eyes, and then he pulls his cowl off, and you're feeling go, "What? Did you wash your face? Because your eyes are back to normal. I'm sure you were just wearing black stuff on your."
Well, they do that.
It's the same thing.
It's the same in. It's in The Dark Knight. He does it as well.
Really?
And it's like obvious that his eyes have got black makeup on.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I'd say it does. Although that doesn't work well, that transformation, I agree. If they'd have just left it with Alec Baldwin wearing the scarf, I think it would have worked perfectly fine.
Yeah. Because I think he was good. I liked his voice for it and stuff.
Yeah, well, he does. Yeah, because here's him doing the voice. I mean, I quite like it when he goes to the Cobalt Club, which is all these things are basically from the original books and stuff. He goes to the Cobalt Club and he meets his uncle and he meets Margot Lane. But when he's sort of like, you find out his uncle is sort of like in the police or quite a senior in the police, and he sort of basically does a Jedi mind trick on him.
Yeah.
But that bit I liked because they sort of like he leans back and they have the sort of shadow and his eyes go and his eyes go all glassy and stuff. Like it looks great, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's what you should be doing with the mask and stuff, not the silly rubber nose.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. The story isn't wholly clear, and I do have the two things I say is firstly the plot isn't wholly clear, and his powers aren't wholly clear. Like you demonstrated them, but at no point is it fully explained.
No, you just you're told he learnt them.
Yeah. Well, more than that, you're never entirely sure what his powers are because they seem to change a little bit. Like at one point at the beginning, like that's the great scene on the bridge. Like he's almost like invisible.
Yeah.
And then later on, he literally peels out of a wall from a shadow, and I'm like, "That's cool, but why was he just invisible like he was before?"
Is he a shadow, or is he like Peter Pan's shadow, or is he just invisible?
So there are moments of inconsistency with his powers, which is a little disappointing. But there's just something about this film I really do enjoy. I mean, the characters are silly as well.
So this is the one. This is the one I enjoyed of the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird because I knew when I was watching it, I was like, this is not very good. But for some reason, I really, I like after finishing it, I went away and read some Shadow. I listened to some of the old radio episodes,
Oh,
which
did you?
which are great as
Orson
well.
Welles. Orson Welles, that his voice and that laugh, it's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, they are really good.
Yeah,
But I mean, the cast in this is pretty good as well. That's the thing that I find I enjoy about it. I mean, you've got, you know, there's other, I mean, the villain in this is a guy called Shiwan Khan, who's no, I don't know the guy called John Lone, but the others you've got like Penelope Ann Miller, you've got Peter Doyle, Ian McKellen,
yeah,
and then and then you've got like Tim Curry,
yeah. He just
wonderful Tim Curry,
pops
yeah.
up.
Yeah, and then you've also got like James Hong, who I know from sort of like Big Trouble in Little China and stuff. And it's just one of those films where you're like, I know him.
Yeah, it's like the
Um,
who's who of the 90s.
yeah, and Peter Boyle is sort of like the cabbie and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Is
that's cool.
is really, yeah. So it's got the right tone. It's almost like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but like it's almost like Alec Baldwin as the Shadows, the character, sort of like it's almost like the Adam West thing, isn't it? Like Alec Baldwin in the Shadow is the straight man. Like for him,
Yeah,
all this is serious and dead. You know, it goes on and on. For everybody else, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, where they're a bit like, you do know this is nonsense.
yeah.
And I kind of enjoy that that there is that sort of because again, the guy who I really like, Jonathan Winters, who plays his uncle. The sort of the older sort of like
Yeah.
chubby guy and stuff. I've seen him in 100 things again, like you know, and I just like his sort of the way he approaches things. You know, the way he just is in this film is just he's just a very welcome presence.
Yeah, and I think it's good because it's not like, if you look back to before, you've got like Dick Tracy, where it just seemed like the actors were almost given too much in the way of liberties, and kind of hammed it up a little bit, like overdoing it. But it's also I don't know. It's not. It's like it's just stupid enough. Like it doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't annoy you. It doesn't get to a point where you're like, oh, this is just what is going on. It's tight enough to be like keep you going through it.
Well, it's one of those. There's moments in this that you say that are really cool. Like you get the bit on the bridge. I think the fight in the laboratory later on, where he's sort of dipping out the shadows, is really cool. Whenever he's the Shadow, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The only thing that sort of like it doesn't bother me because I just go along with it because it's just silly enough. Is the villain in this?
Yeah,
the Khan, who he's I think in a slightly different film, but he's clearly having
bizarre. That it is a bizarre choice.
Yeah, because it's like he's supposed to be the descendant of Genghis Khan and all this other stuff, and you're like, okay, that's cool, and he's got similar powers, and it's sort of like he's a nemesis, and he's obviously proud of this sort of like a Khan, a Genghis Khan sort of heritage. What I can't get past is this is obviously set in the 30s New York, and he clads all of his sort of his henchmen. He's got all these sort of like Chinese or sort of Tibetan henchmen or whatever, Nepalese henchmen, but they're all dressed as like Genghis Khan soldiers, just kicking around the streets,
just standard marching along. No one bats an eyelid either. Just like,
that's what. The bit I love is one of them starts following Lamont Cranston, and he's like trying to pretend like he's being nonchalant and trying to hide in corners. I'm like, dude, you're literally wearing medieval armor.
You just those are the moments that are like that's pure Batman 66. Like, is it supposed to be funny? I'm not entirely certain.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's bits like that where I'm like, I'm not sure if is this supposed to be as funny as it is, but it is good.
I think it's hilarious as well that the villain wears clothes that match his floor. Just to perfect those aerial scenes.
Yeah, that's it. That's really sort of like that's taking it to the next level, isn't it? That's sort of like
just in case anyone looks at me from above, I want to match.
That's it. Yeah. that's like top level feng shui. That is. That's. But I mean, yeah, the film is ridiculous. But like you say, it works on like a really. It is literally like this is what a pulp should be. It really
Yeah,
works on a pulpy level because I mean, like some of the silliness of when he first goes after Tim Curry's Professor Claymore, what it was called. He goes into that the ball thing, doesn't it? And it
yeah,
fills full of he locks him in. It's filling full of water, and it's ridiculous. But it feels like you say, like that Batman '66 moment, sort of like same shadow
yeah,
time, same shadow channel.
yeah. That's exactly. Yeah, and it's fun adventure, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's sort of where it lands for
yeah,
me.
it is. It's a really fun adventure, and what I find the most funny is that the Ian McKellen, who obviously everyone got to know more so probably like 6 years later with at least in nerd culture with sort of like playing Magneto, and then he was Gandalf. So to most people, he's this sort of like stately Shakespearean actor, with this sort of like deep, sort of elderly statesman of acting. And in this, I was like, oh wow, like yeah, he's really just bobbing along on this film, like
Yeah,
I don't think like clearly the stage work wasn't paying at this point.
but it's like quite fun to see him in it as
Mm.
well.
Well,
It's, he's just enjoyable to watch.
well, that's the thing. The one thing I would say in this film is like no one's particularly bad. They're just sort of, in some cases, just sort of doing their own thing.
Yeah,
um, but I don't know. I even think the Shadow as a character has got an interesting setup. Like you've had like others are sort of the lone vigilante, like Batman. We've had as the lone vigilante, and obviously we've watched like Darkman, who's similar sort of in a similar vein. Even like Dick Tracy, like he works in the police, but he's meant to be like a one man band, sort of thing. But
yeah,
I like the fact that in this, the Shadow collects, if anything, a
yeah,
series of helpers, and they all got given a lovely ring, um,
yeah,
and he calls on them, and he does actually utilize them. So that opening scene pays off later because that guy is
yeah.
called upon. So I do like that element that he knows he can't.
It's a cool, yeah, and it's the rings and stuff. It's quite interesting, and then you see someone like you see a detective with a ring on later, and you're like, oh, I flipping it.
Yeah, like it
There's
does.
another one.
Yeah. One thing I would say is that watching this, I'd forgotten. And I was like, I'm going to check something. So I checked the guy who directed this, Russell Mulcahy. He directed Highlander,
Ah, right.
the first Highlander, and the second one. But let's not talk about that. But he directed the first one, and obviously, like there was something in it. I'm like that sort of. I can see that there's a similar tone there.
Yeah, sort of. There's a daft tone to a serious product.
Yeah, like it's like it's supposed to be taken completely straight, but we all know this is a bit silly, so we're not gonna kill us. We're not gonna go mad over it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna have a Queen soundtrack, and we're gonna have a Scotsman playing a sort of 400-year-old Spaniard who was raised in Egypt. You know what I mean? It's like we know it's silly, but you're gonna love it nonetheless.
yeah. It's just fun adventure.
Yeah.
Just go along with it. You'll be happy.
Yeah, and so I really did enjoy this film. I've got it on Blu-ray. I've got the special edition. It's a really good film.
Yeah.
It's like you say. So would you recommend it? Like if people sort of for these pulpy films, I think this is one of the ones I'd recommend.
Yeah, I think like with most of them, I would you'd always say like if you're into that kind of thing, like if you're not into like if you only if you take your movies very seriously or whatever, you might struggle
Yeah,
a little bit. But I think there's plenty to find in it, and it looks nice, it feels fun. And as well like it is in a weird way, even though it's like it feels just like it's ripping off the Batman movies.
mm.
I think the Shadow as a character is original, and there's
Yes,
original aspects to it, so you can get something from it and enjoy it. It's definitely it was up there as one of the best we've watched. I think like after Rocketeer, this was my
I'd
second.
agree with that. I definitely agree with that. It was just one of those ones I thought was quite good fun. I enjoyed it. One of the key things I would say is like I say this has got not prestige. It's got a history. And then I'd say you said about this looks good, and I think that's really important. That this has got some like the costuming's good, the sets look really good.
Yeah,
They've gone out of their way, sort of like when they do the street scenes, they've got the sort of the vintage cars, and it all looks of a piece. Like it look, where I think sort of some of the others, especially Dick Tracy, went for a very specific look.
yeah, and it was just I don't feel like it really landed anything.
No,
Tracy, it was kind of in the middle of too many things.
yeah, but by trying to keep this authentic, much like you say about the Rocketeer, I think this film, I could imagine, I could imagine the Rocketeer landing in this New York,
Yes,
and
yeah.
working alongside this Shadow, or the Shadow. I think, as we said, sort of the Shadow does turn up sort of in the Rocketeer original story.
Yeah, in
And
the stories he does. Yeah,
yeah, and so I can imagine sort of Alec Baldwin turning up in a Rocketeer sequel, around this time, sort
yeah.
of to give some information or something to a young Cliff. So yeah, I think it's good. I think it's well worth checking out. And Alec Baldwin. Question for you actually: do you think Alec Baldwin would have been a good Batman?
Yeah, I mean, after watching this, I think before I'd have been like, I'm not sure, but he does make a good, like, especially in his youth, he
Mm.
makes a really good Lamont Cranston, and he's got enough like edge on him, hasn't he, to sort of,
Yeah,
I don't know,
like he's a good looking guy. And he's got that sort of sense of charm. He's got a charm, hasn't he? So he can be
yeah,
sort of like disarming and charming, but also you do feel like you say there could be a little bit of an edge to him. So he can do the brooding thing pretty well as well.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't
I
know. I
mean,
think he would have been quite
when you
good.
look at like some of the people that did play Batman, it seems like he definitely could have done it.
Yeah. I think he did a better job than Clooney. I mean, that's
Yeah,
but that's not really saying a great
no.
deal. Let's be honest. So that's the Shadow. So that's like we both said. I think we both enjoyed this one.
Yeah,
It's worth a find. It's worth checking out. But we jump forward a couple of years, and the sort of you would have thought by 1997 the sort of sheen would have started to come off
I suppose.
this
Yeah, especially
idea.
when was Batman and Robin?
Batman and Robin is 97, same year.
So yeah, so
So
this is basically the
Batman Forever, Batman Forever is 95, and then Batman and Robin is 97,
yeah,
and 97 kills like say almost killed the Batman franchise,
yeah,
and definitely kills the pulp hero sort of thing,
yeah,
because we get Billy Zane as the Phantom
yeah.
in uh I'm gonna be honest here. I did have fun with this film.
I struggled with this one. I wanted to like it, and there's bits of it
Yeah,
that I did like. But I think by the end, I was very much like, I'm done with this now.
yeah,
Him,
yeah.
like the Phantom,
Mm.
the main character. Obviously, the Phantom. There's different generations. This one is a blithering idiot. I don't know how he gets any. He just seems to, like he's got a grin and nothing else. He's like, "Hi, I'm the Phantom," and then somehow gets to it.
Yeah, that's it. Like, he is. When you watch the first sort of 10 minutes of this film, and firstly, I would say that he's meant to be. He's quite young. He's a youngish Billy Zane. He's only been the Phantom for so long. I think was it 7 years, 6 years, or
Yeah,
something. And so he obviously left when his dad died because he is haunted by the ghost of his dad. His dad's clearly in his 60s. Like, how old was he when he was the Phantom? Like, and it's not even like he's. You see, like Sylvester Stallone or even like Harrison Ford, and these are guys that are all elderly and looking like they look better now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s than I
yeah,
do now. They do. They're amazing. And I'm looking at this guy who's playing his dad, and I'm like, there's no way you were
yeah.
swinging through
Flipping
trees.
Edward Longshanks.
Yeah.
Flip-
It's just ridiculous. So it's a bit weird to begin with, but the first part of the film is supposed to show you how good this person is at doing their job. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's sort of what they're supposed to do. You know, and especially if you're thinking about these adventure films, think Raiders of the Lost Ark, or even The Shadow. That thing of like how he saves that person.
Yeah.
The Phantom fails.
Yeah, but I don't know how. Like, he continues to fail and fail and fail until he just seems to get lucky at the end.
Yeah, like he does a lot of like acrobatics and stuff, and some of it looks kind of cool.
Yeah,
But for the most part, yeah, I say for the most part, it's a bit.
do you know what he
Like,
is? It's like he is Hong Kong Fooey, and he's got a flipping a dog and a horse that do all his work for him, and then he takes the praise at the end.
That dog. That's the thing I should say. So he's got a dog and a horse. If this was a Disney film, they would they'd be like say his Disney sidekicks.
Yeah,
There's a great scene in this when he sort of I mean the plots in this is a completely irrelevant. Like it's complete nonsense.
yeah,
About three sort of like mystic skulls or four mystic skulls that are meant to be collected. But there's a scene where he has to save Diane Palmer, who's sort of like one of his lost loves, the one that got away, and all this other stuff. And he has to save her off a boat, and he gets beaten up and saved by his wolf. So he is flipping useless.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. His animals are amazing, but
Well, yeah, in the story, but on the film set, as the scene pans out, like this wolf sort of has these guys pinned, doesn't it?
and they just don't move, and he's just stood there.
Yeah, but then like it's sort of like the camera sort of like you have a cut of these guys and they're all like, oh my god, it's a wolf, and they're looking all panicked, and then it goes to the wolf and it's basically just stood there licking its face, and
Yeah,
it's sort
it's
of
not
like
even like it's not growling.
no.
It's just like happily stood there.
Yeah, and then when he calls it, it just sort of like it doesn't even run. It wanders off set, and the next shot is and then the next like shot is it running off the boat, and you're like, another take would have probably sufficed at this point, like just one more. But yeah, it's a bit. The thing is with the shadow, the shadow is that sort of like it's got this Eastern mysticism involved in it, but it's not set in that era. Like, you understand he's back in New York and this sort of thing. With the Phantom, I couldn't get past this thing of like, is this sort of like I couldn't get past it. I'm not sure if this is racist or not.
Yeah, I think like it's definitely it's now it wouldn't be the way it is.
Yeah,
Like the
it's
fact
sort of
that
like,
he should be black. Like there's no question about that. Especially this many generations on, it's just like some white guy lands amongst a black. I think is it in Africa?
India, North India.
Oh right, okay. Well, they were all black, weren't they, at the start? The tribe.
Yeah.
Am I right with that, or am I being racist?
No. It's. I'm convinced that I don't know how they did, because like I say they did look like they would you'd expect sort of like North Central African or something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like years later, because it jumps, because that's set his great granddad or whatever. And then it comes to the future, like the present, I should say. Oh, actually, it's not. It's the 30s, and it's set in North India, and it's set during the reign of the British Empire. Like this is still the British running India, and so I'm like, I'm not sure how this works. Like it just feels off.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I do like it just seems unnecessary. Like you can have it without having that. I think, like I suppose at the time it was written, you've got to take that into account. It seems like they've found a way to make the main character white.
Yes.
Almost.
Well,
that's what they're doing with it.
It's almost like the Tarzan effect, isn't it? Like and when this comic was originally created, it was very much to do that. Like, right, we want an exotic pulp hero. That's what we're looking for. So that it fits that mold. And for a comic made in the late 20s, early 30s, like fine,
Yeah, it's of the time, and as well, like it's being pitched to a to a certain audience.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But you're right. When you say about that, the Phantom should be black. I was just like, that was instantly my thought. I was like, How many? They've worked incredibly hard to ensure
Yeah.
that he stays this white.
Well, that's it. It seems like weird that they're so intent on defending that, because they seem to spend their entire life outside of the cave, the Phantom Cave. They go to America, go to school there, to come back just to look after some schools.
a small part of a jungle.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that he says we've sworn vengeance on this pirate community, and then you find out that this pirate community is literally living on the other side of the world. And at no point has any of the Phantoms gone, I should probably go look for them.
Yeah.
But I can't be bothered. I'm just going to stay here and defend this jungle. He just like it's absolute nonsense at times.
It really is. And I mean, that whole scene at the end where they go to it's Stingy, isn't it? Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat.
Yes. I'm going to find him because he's what's his name? I'm not going to pronounce it because I'll probably get it wrong. It's Kari Hiroki Tagawa. But yeah, he's awesome. I love when he turns up.
But that whole scene, I really hated on this stupid fake studio pirate ship.
Yeah.
With the sharks really upset me. I just couldn't. This is like,
all I could think
like watching the Pirates of the Caribbean ride or something like that.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought.
Not even the good one, like the version at Drayton Manor.
Yeah, that's all I could think was like this looks like it either they're filming this on a ride set, or a set from Goonies was still available. It looks that bit is so funny. It's almost got, because the thing is, it has got a couple of actors in that I kind of like, and that so I was looking forward to that. You got you got the guy from Mortal Kombat who I do enjoy. You got James Remar, who I always like when he turns up. He plays sort of like the main sort of like thug baddie who wears the sort of the leather trench coat.
Yeah.
And then you've got obviously Catherine Zeta-Jones turns up, and
I mean, her character, I could not. That was just.
Yeah, her character. I love the fact that there's a moment in this film that I literally had to rewind to double check to make sure I hadn't misunderstood it. So they're in a car, and she's a baddie. So she's part of these like sky pirates, of female sky pirates. Which, to be fair, is a really cool, like pulpy idea. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This band of female sky pirates. Wicked. I'm going to get to see loads of this. Nope.
No, it doesn't even sit in a plane. Not once in the film.
No, yeah. Not at any point do you see them as a band ever again. Just this one moment when they capture Diane Palmer. And so I was like, oh, okay, that's disappointing. And then when it happens, like they're sort of taking this woman, Diana, off. They've kidnapped her and they're trying to get away, and Diana sort of says, "You're missing out, or there's something. You're not happy." What do you mean by that? You know what it means. And then you get this sort of like this worried, sort of like pensive look on Catherine Zeta-Jones, and I'm like, I don't know. Is there a cut scene? Is there something I don't know? Yeah, because then all of a sudden they get on the plane and she's like, "No, solidarity, sister," and I'm like, "Sorry, I
stick together."
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like, why has she changed her mind? And then all of a sudden she becomes a goodie at the moment on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. And so, and like you say, the people that are the most effective in this, like, are the women in this are actually a lot more effective than the Phantom.
Yeah.
I think
everyone in it is more effective than
I honestly think if they'd have been left to their own devices, if this had been a film with just sort of Catherine Zeta-Jones and Christy Swanson doing it, I think they'd have solved this in half an hour.
Yeah, maybe if they had the horse as well.
Yeah.
Because that horse is fast.
It is.
It keeps up with planes.
I was going to say yes, twice. So it's the thing that the cast should be good, but the film itself is hilariously sort of like
I mean,
silly.
we've not mentioned the sort of the villain of the film either.
I was about to, yes. So Treat Williams as Xander Drax, and he's in Batman and Robin. Like he's clearly in a
Yeah.
different film.
I mean, what is going on with him? He's just like every time he reads a line, you can sort of sense that it wasn't written that way.
Yeah,
It's like you just read that completely wrong.
it's almost like the director gives up with him.
Yeah, it's like do what you want. I'm done.
Yeah, treats do what I can't stop him. He watched Dick Tracy before he starts, and he wants to be Al Pacino. That's all I can say.
It's just so bizarre.
Well, it's the fact that like there are, they first introduce him, he is playing it incredibly broad, isn't he? Like he's
Yeah.
playing like a big character, but that doesn't happen straight away. Like the first scene of him introduced is it's like a fundraiser sort of dinner party, and it's for sort of Diana Palmer's uncle and this foundation, and he's told he's not wanted there, and he makes this sort of like veiled threat, and it's quite sinister.
Yeah, he's the character there that you would expect him to be.
Yeah, like he's playing sort of like a businessman who sort of has a darker side and a bit dabbles in in crime and stuff, and you think he's going to be quite a sort of like he's
that must have been
with it.
His audition tape.
That was day one.
Done it. We're on.
And then someone said, "Have you seen Jack Nicholson's Joker? I think you should try some of that." Because after that, it's a completely different character. And I will admit there are logic holes in all of these films. And we've pointed out a lot of them. But the one in this that makes me laugh the most, and I was baffled by, and firstly, sort of like, when you see a torture device or a weapon in a film, right, and someone goes, "That looks cool," my head still goes to the fact of like someone's had to sit, design that, and figure out how it works, and then make it. Right?
Yeah.
Someone's had to, not just for the film, but within the film, in the world of the film, someone's had to do that. And you go, all right, okay, let's see, what is that a good idea? So in The Shadow, you had a mystic blade, and you go, well, all right, I can understand that. In this, you get a microscope with blades where the eye socket should be.
Forgot about
that. And he uses it. So he's looking. Treat Williams, Xander Drax, is looking for some material about these mystic skulls, and information has been leaking out to the police. So he calls in this librarian or a curator of a museum, who's a professor of literacy. That's what he says. He's a professor of ancient literature and all this sort of stuff. And then he says, "Oh, but while you're here, Professor, could you have a look at this through this magnifying glass or this microscope at something I'm unsure of?" And if I was this professor, I'd be like, "I couldn't help you.
Yeah,
that's
sorry,
not what that's
Never
not what I
been part
do."
of that game.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He looks in it, and you know that there are two blades in it when he turns the thing to adjust just the magnification. And when he does, he sees something that says liar, and then the blades shoot out and pierce his eyes. And I was just thinking, that's such a big setup. That is, like, how much work has gone into that? Like,
I know, and what's so sad is that due to the actor to treat himself, his performance takes away any cynicism, if that's a word, from his character. So he's always just happy. So when he does something like that, it's undone. All that effort is undone.
Well, the thing that's troubled me most about that scene, and the fact that this guy's never been caught, shows how crap the police are in this place, because he literally kills a senior professor of ancient literature from a museum.
Yeah.
That he had an appointment with, so everyone knows he was there. And like, what's he going to do with the body?
Well, it's like, and when he's always doing it, like when he robs the museum.
Yeah, he just walks in
there and he's like, "Yeah, we're going to do it now." After throwing a spear in that mafia guy's back.
Yeah. See, that's a really good point. Actually, when they break into the museum, they don't even break into the museum. He brazenly walks in
Yeah.
and just takes something, and then he's like, "Don't worry, folks, museum security." And you're just sort of like, no one believes
And I
that.
was like, yeah, that's right. The museum
Yeah.
security is robbing the museum. That's okay.
Yeah. Even the hotel, even the museum security seem to be like, "Wow, yeah, seems legit. I'll accept that."
I think I saw him on my last shift anyway, so
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that Jeff? Yeah, that's Jeff. He's always doing this kind of thing.
yeah, he's very smiley.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's the good bits in this film are sort of like basically aren't the Phantom because or even the baddie. Like it's so ridiculous and so silly.
Yeah. I think there's
But
like a certain design. I liked the Phantom Cave, and even though I think the stuff that's good about it is probably the stuff that's good about the property,
yes,
the Phantom itself, where you could go with that, but I don't know. It's like they just ruined it.
they did. It becomes like it just becomes so silly, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And it's just sort of there are moments in this film where you do think every now and then I'm like, oh, this could get good. Like they do. There's some good stunt work. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some
yeah.
really good stunt work.
Some good. I like that scene with the plane and the horse and stuff. As daft as
Yeah.
that's a good scene.
There's some really good stunt work and stuff in this, and there's some good bits, and it looks beautiful, and some of the filming locations are really nice. But like I say, it just doesn't come together as a film. And like I say, all I can think of, and the other thing I'd say is, I mean, the Shadow. If we think back on these other characters that we've watched, the Rocketeer, I think, is got a pretty. His costume looks comic accurate, but it's very simple. It's a flyboy outfit with a rocket pack and a helmet. The Shadow is again very simple. It's that sort of like that black silhouette with the cape and the big hat and stuff, like easily done. But even like Dick Tracy, like it sticks to the comics, but it sticks to the comics in its own internal logic. So whilst it may not be great, everything is brightly coloured. So him walking around in a bright yellow raincoat, fine. It sort of works in that world.
Yeah.
Even Darkman, he's wearing rags and all this other stuff. Like it's sort of okay. I'll accept that for what it is. But for some reason in this, the Phantom's costume, I can't get past it.
No, I know what you mean. It just feel like what. First of all, why is he wearing it?
Yeah,
I don't understand why he's wearing a costume at all. I mean, maybe if he wants to hide his identity, some sort of mask, but it just doesn't fit anything.
No, but it doesn't serve a purpose, and this is the main problems I have with it. Like going back to the ones we just talked about, they all seem to work in their own internal logic. Like the Rocketeer is a flyboy, fine. The Shadow is wearing a black loose coat that sort of loose hat and stuff that works for the 30s. Dick Tracy the same. Even like the Darkman and stuff. But then when you look at this thing, why purple?
Yeah,
like surely you'd want to wear like dark colours or greens and things so you blend with the jungle.
I know it's such a strange choice, and he's got like weird, like skull patterns on it, hasn't it?
Yeah,
as well, or like tribally patterns or something. It's just so, it's just it doesn't fit the environment in any way.
Well, it doesn't fit the era, and it doesn't fit the environment. Because I'm pretty sure sort of like screen printing wasn't that good in the 30s, let alone in some sort of like, dark jungle area of whether in North Africa or North India. Like it just feels so out of place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and again, like you said, they have the daft thing at the end of the film where he, having worn his mask and his helmet or whatever, he takes it off and his eyes are normal. Not all blacked out, and then he puts the helmet back on and they're blacked out again. And it really does bother me.
It does, because it does remove you from it every time. You're like, oh well, we could see that he had like if he took it off and had makeup around his eyes, are you really going to be like, whoa, that looks ridiculous? Why would you take what are you doing?
Yeah, that's it. You'd be like, oh, I understand why, because
it helps
because
the disguise.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Um, it's just yeah. I mean, the thing maybe I enjoyed this film more, but almost as a sort of like a spoof. I think that's what I was taking it as
Yeah, I mean,
because I
yeah,
was
it's laughable.
yeah. I was chuckling along with a lot of it, and like I say, I don't think I was supposed to be. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, yeah,
Because there's so many moments where like you think, oh, I think the cast think this is a comedy. Billy Zane's not sure,
well,
but
that's yeah, and I mean, like Billy Zane, it is like for saying he went to school. His
yeah,
character is so dumb. It's like he's never
yeah,
seen anything in his life, but he's lived in America, but he still doesn't understand the concept of money.
yeah. That bit really annoyed me because, like I say, he's supposed to be college educated, and then he gives that guy money, and he's like, "Oh yes, that's so and so currency." You're like, "Well, yeah." You knew you were coming to America. Surely it's not hard to get some American dollars sort of sorted out.
Yeah,
And like I say, he gives them that the jewels, doesn't he? And that sort of sets
yeah.
it up.
And then he's got this
Um,
taxi driver for life.
yeah, I'm trying. Who plays him? Is it anyone?
I,
It's someone
he's
around.
another one, guys. He just seemed to be in everything.
There you go. I've just found it's called. His name was John Cappaducci. He's one of those guys that I say he was just in loads of stuff
Yeah,
in this sort of late 80s and 90s as a sort of like one of those minor actors. Um, but yeah, it's just it's difficult to describe this film because I think it is. There's nothing to take from it either. You can't sort of go, yeah, there's a theme here about redemption or generational, taking revenge.
no,
No, there's not because it's rubbish. Like,
it's a load of rubbish. It really is. It's just like, oh, okay, maybe uh, don't mess around on pirate rides. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, I love the fact that like the best bit in this film is, I think, although the sets are rubbish, is when they confront the pirates and stuff. And some of the fun for me comes from that moment. Like, is he threatens Treat Williams, Xander Drax threatens him with like a Tommy gun or something, and your man from Mortal Kombat is sort of like he says something. He's like, "What does that mean?" He says, "Kill them with the cannon," and I'm just like, "That's funny."
Yeah, he
Like,
just starts blowing holes in them, doesn't he?
yeah, and I was like, "This bit's funny. Like this
Yeah.
stuff is quite entertaining." But
I
the
think
rest of it,
even like the way the Phantom wins, it's just like because he's got a ring on that he's been wearing the whole like because it's part of the Phantom uniform and he's just sort of realised what it
well,
is.
yeah, that bit really bothered me because it's that sort of thing of all of a sudden it's declared that you don't need because the pirate that says it, you don't need 3 rings, you need 4, and all of a sudden you're like, no. I'd love it. It'd have been so much better in this film if, like, the Phantom's gone. I have the 4th ring and I've worn it all my
Yeah,
life, and it's this ring. If it hadn't have been that, and he was like, "Ah, shit,"
yeah,
like, 'cause, like it's just
he'd have
too much of
lost.
a coincidence.
He was just
Yeah,
lucky. The whole like that's everything he did was like pure luck.
yeah, but even if like his dad, because obviously he has the ghost of his dad sort of follows him around, who's literally the ghost who walks.
Yeah,
Um, if his dad had said to him at some point, like, "Don't forget to take your ring; it's the most important thing you have," like some drop line or some emphasis to
yeah.
explain why it's important,
But he's more
like,
focused on him getting married.
yeah,
The
basically,
whole film is just him
it's
trying to get him to like ask the woman out in it.
yeah. No, I love. Yeah, that's the weird thing of this. Like this old guy, his dad's clearly spent decades dedicated to the cause. Doing whatever in the jungle and stuff. And then he's like, "Well, I'm dead now, so I haven't got to worry. So come on, I want to live vicariously through you, son. Come on, go and find yourself a woman and just bang her senseless. That's what we're looking to
Maybe
do."
it's a case of like he knows how terrible he is as the Phantom, so
Yeah,
he's just hoping that the next generation will be better.
yeah. He's like, "You've got to have a son because you're crap, and
You're
we need to
crap.
pass this on."
We want
Yeah,
this to be over as soon as possible.
if we can pass this on as soon as possible, then all the better. So yeah, so there's not much more to say about the Phantom, to be
No.
perfectly honest. It's not surprising that this is not been released widely on Blu-ray or DVD. I had to rent it on Amazon. And it's yeah. At one point, I was like, "Do I want to sort of a bit of a completionist thing? Do I want to get this?" And much like I thought with Darkman, I was like, "No, I don't. Like, I
Yeah,
really don't. I
yeah.
don't need this in my collection. It's not worth having." So yeah, that's sort of like the Shadow and the Phantom. So we finished them out, but as a final point, I would sort of ask. So let's order them. Really, I'm going to
Okay,
drop
yeah.
that on you. So you got 5 films. So we started with Darkman, Dick Tracy, The Rocketeer, The Shadow, and The Phantom. So what's your order from best? Or let's go from least to best. Least favorite to most favorite of those 5 films. What are your thoughts?
It's difficult. The bottom slot is the one I'm struggling with, because it's somewhere. I think probably the worst was Darkman.
Mm,
But it's between that and the Phantom. Just those two, I just didn't really like. I suppose, like you say, the Phantom you can kind of laugh at, whereas Darkman's just a bit draining, if
yes.
anything. But yeah, it's probably Darkman, then the Phantom, then Dick Tracy,
Yeah.
because Dick Tracy had moments, but was overall quite draining because
Mm,
sort of mainly I think because of the acting and the bizarre face makeup on people was very off.
yeah.
Then I would go The Shadow and top Rocketeer.
Do you know what? I think I'd agree.
Yeah,
Totally. I think it's true. I think Darkman has probably got the least amount of sort of like enjoyable moments where you can go, that bit's good, that bit's good.
yeah,
Like it veers all over the place. It makes little sense. It's sort of it's both wacky and dark, but not in a good way, like Evil Dead 2 is or something like that. It just can't seem to hit
yeah.
that
It's
balance.
draining, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard work to get through it. And it's just not well thought out. It was not a good film. And I agree. Actually, I think the Phantom is the next one up because it's just. Although I would say that for me, Darkman is a clear bottom place. It's then the Phantom and Dick Tracy that sort of fighting out a little bit.
Right, yeah. That's
Um,
fair to be like Dick Tracy was only. I don't know. I think it just felt a bit more stable.
I'd agree. I think the thing I see is with the Phantom, like it's so bad it's almost good. And like say it's got some bits in it that are hilarious unintentionally,
Yeah,
and but it's got some fun moments. The thing
yeah,
with it is, it's one of those films that keeps showing you potential. It keeps telling you something really cool and then pulling it
yeah,
away. So, like we've got an army of female sky pirates. You're like, awesome. Were you going to see them? No. Oh,
no
okay.
stars.
Yeah, we've got this guy, sort of the Phantom, the ghost who walks. Cool. Is he going to have some superhero powers? No,
No, but he's got
nothing.
purple suit.
Yeah, but he's got a purple suit. Oh, cool. He's got a wolf and a horse. Oh, great. Are we going to see them do something? Not really. They're just sort of going to be there. It just constantly does that, and you're sort of like, so it's just disappointment after disappointment.
Yeah,
But Dick Tracy, sort of, what I will give to Dick Tracy is it swings for the fences.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's one of those films like it's a miss, but it's a big miss. Like it really tried.
yeah.
And I've almost got to applaud it for that. Where I'm like, well
And I
done.
think there's a certain thing with Dick Tracy where you can see you can see the problems and you can see that it could have been good. Like,
Yeah,
they could have fixed things if they'd have done things different ways and changed this, tweet that. It could have been like quite good.
yeah. I think if it's one of those things that's neither one thing or the other. And if it had been, I don't know, a tad darker, kept all the sort of like brightly coloured primary colours and all that,
Yeah,
even all the face makeup and everything, but gone really dark. I think it would be like a really bizarre, like cult classic by now.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
everyone would be like, "Have you seen this like mad film?" Sort of Day Glow Sin City, as we sort of as we thought. or you go the other way and you do become an out and out kids film,
Yeah.
and you go the full slapstick and you do the whole thing. Like you've got to be one or the other, and it doesn't really know what it wants to be. But I have to award just for me Al Pacino, just being like let off a leash, and also just for Dustin Hoffman,
Yeah.
who as Mumbles is still probably one of my favourite things in that film.
Yeah. I feel like if they'd have, for me, the way if it wasn't Warren Beatty cast as Dick Tracy, that would have been better. And to be honest, if they'd have like been a bit more like reined Al Pacino in a little bit, like just on some of those scenes, just cut it down, just tighten it up. It's fine being like that, but it's like there's parts where he's going on so much that you're just like, why is this still? If this wasn't Al Pacino, this would be cut.
Yeah. Well, even that, it wouldn't have made it to it wouldn't even have made it on set.
Yeah.
The director would have gone, no, stop it.
Yeah, it's just like Al Pacino was, his absolute hero, and he would have he'd have just gone with anything. That's what it felt like a little bit.
Well, I think you're right, because I think when you look at the cast, like it's clear what he's doing. Like you say, he's got some heavy hitters in there. Like, and you've got, like, as we said, you keep seeing people that have appeared in like The Godfather or Goodfellas and all this other stuff. So it's clear what Warren Beatty wants to do.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a film called Blue Velvet, David Lynch film?
I haven't. I know the film. I haven't seen it.
So you've got Anthony. No, is it Anthony Hopkins? The other guy, the other crazy one. But he plays a character now called Frank, who is clearly insane, and sort of like, at one point, like he sucks down oxygen and starts sort of like mumbling, sort of like "mummy," and it's weird.
Yeah.
But he's like a really like you get that he's really sinister, and I almost think that Dennis Hopper. That's what I'm thinking. I'm just have to check Dennis Hopper,
Yeah.
And I almost think, like, again, if Dick Tracy had been darker and have gone all out, and you'd had like Al Pacino looking like he did, but tuning up the scenery, but then being like really like insanely violent, or like, at one point just losing it and pummeling one of those dancers to death, like I'd have been like, this is fucked up, but it's sort of like it's telling me something, it's doing something different. Like, I think I'd have been more into it.
Well, the thing is, it's weird because it's like he's just copying off the Joker, which is, as we said before.
Yeah.
But if he had just copied off the Joker, it would have been better, because he went too far, which is not like Jack Nicholson doesn't do that.
Well, weirdly, I think it's sort of like he went too far to be the Joker, but not far enough. Like if he was just a bit further, I think it'd have been even better.
Well, that's it. So cut down on the extensive dialogue, and then ramp up the action.
Yeah,
like his actions.
So that's the problem. It's neither sort of one thing or the other. I think a little bit. So it falls in between that. Lost potential. You're right about the Shadow. Definitely comes in second. It's very close for me, the sort of first and second. But I really enjoy the Shadow. I think it's one of those films I do go back to, and I do enjoy sort of what they do. But yeah, The Rocketeer is a clear winner.
It's just a good film. It
really is.
The others all have, like, I would say with all of them, like, if you're into that kind of stuff, you'd enjoy it. Whereas this, I just say, it's a fun film. Like, watch it.
Yeah, like it's on. Now it's on. If you've got Disney Plus, or you can find it on a couple of other things. Like, track it down. It's actually really good. I mean, you can probably pick it up on Blu-ray or DVD pretty cheap. It's a good film. It's just a good, fun sort of family adventure film. And the cast are good. I love Timothy Dalton in it. It plays to the era. It's quality. It's just so tragic that this never got a proper sequel or a reboot. Really,
it's a shame that it just didn't kick off the way they hoped it would have done. Because it would be interesting to see which way it went.
Yeah, I think it is, because they could have done so much more with it, and there's other adventures to have had, especially if you'd have gone like to war or done something else. Like there's
Yeah.
stuff they could have done. The thing that was, and again, I find that there's the potential there because in the film they have what was his name? He became the recluse and all that other stuff. Howard Hughes.
Yes.
They have it. They have it that Howard Hughes developed the rocket, didn't they? Because he was an aviator and all that other stuff. In the comic, though, it is Doc Savage who invented the rocket. I reread it recently, and I was like, "This is really good."
Yeah, yeah,
and
I
it
did
does
as well after watching it.
Yeah, and so I was like, actually, this is really like if you were to do, like we said, a shared pulp universe. Like this is your entry character, this young whippersnapper who sort of like keeps crossing paths with these other sort of established pulp heroes, which would have been really cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, the Rocketeer is great. It really is. But yeah, that's it. So that's our sort of retrospective. So Matt, I really appreciate. What have you enjoyed going back to these films? I should say.
Yeah, I have. It was fun, like watching them through. I literally watched them in the order I've ranked them, which is weird. I didn't intend to. I just watched them in like just what should I watch? I watched this one, and just ended up being in that way. So at first it was like, oh yeah, this is really fun. The last couple were a bit more draining, and I was a bit like, oh, I look forward to this ending now.
Yeah,
but it's always fun to just like sit down and you watch a few things in this because you get a better idea of where they're all coming from. Especially because obviously, you've like Batman. I know a lot about Batman, obviously through comic ties and whatnot. Anyway, and the film. I did my dissertation on the Batman movies, so I knew a lot about them already. So when you know that they are the sort of the mold, the blueprint for the rest of them, it gives you more of a clear understanding. And then I think you can get more of an appreciation for the Rocketeer because even though you get that pulp feeling which they've all got, which stems from the fact that Batman was so popular, the Rocketeer does its own thing and is not at all in the same vein.
No, I agree completely, and that's probably why it sort of stands out against the others is because it is so different and it is so sort of literally like night and day, isn't it? Really, sort of. It's a Disney film, so it's got that sort of different tone. But yeah, no, I agree. They each of these tries something different. Some succeed, some fail, but I think the Rocketeer definitely sort of stands apart.
Yeah.
And we kept this, I kept this as sort of these 5 films because I sort of felt they encapsulated what I really wanted to cover, and I've really enjoyed watching them. But it has sort of opened this thing up of like, oh, what were the other ones? What else was out there? And people have sort of online and stuff said, oh, you should have included like Zorro. From
we talked about
1999. Yeah. And then there's been others. There's a 1986 film called Biggles, which I don't know if it's one of those films I'm aware of. I've got it on DVD, and it's who Biggles is, don't you? The sort of the World War One pilot, sort of based on like a British sort of serial from the early 20s, I think.
Right. I know. I've never heard of him.
Okay, you've never heard of Biggles.
No.
Okay, well, Biggles is a pilot, and it's very British, and it's very sort of he sort of has a chum called like LG and all these other things. It's a bunch of pilots. Have you ever seen Blackadder Goes Forth, and you have Rick Mayall as the pilot in that?
Yeah.
Think that, but less crude. That's sort of like what it is.
Yeah.
And he obviously takes on like the Germans and sort of there's the Red Baron is his enemy and stuff. And so this film though is about time travel. So this guy is sort of connected to Biggles through time, and he ends up sort of they keep traveling back and forth through time. It's really good fun.
Yeah.
And so someone actually mentioned that to me sort of in passing, and others were like Buckaroo Banzai, and what was the other one someone mentioned? One I've got on Blu-ray actually called Jake Speed, which is sort of like a pastiche of all these sort of pulp heroes that came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it's just this people keep tapping into this thing, this idea of these sort of
Yeah,
like pulp
yeah.
heroes. But like you say, that they're so much lesser known. Of say you've never heard of Biggles, and I'm sure there's people listening to this have gone, yeah, I don't really know the Phantom other than wasn't he in Defenders of the Earth?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Some of them you just know, like the Phantom, you've just seen somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like just something you know, and you're not really sure why. But
No.
things that pop up in throughout, your life that you've seen somewhere, you're not really sure where. It might have been in some weird cartoon or some like the back of a comic book that you read, or obviously there are things for me, but you see them when you in passing.
Well, I think I'll lay that challenge to you because I think with Toon Gem, have you done Defenders of the Earth yet?
No, we've not done Defenders of the Earth. No.
Which was obviously it was the Phantom, Flash Gordon, Mandrake the Magician, and their kids, which was weird. But that I remember that being sort of quite a good cartoon. It probably wasn't, if I'm honest.
Often is the case when you go back.
Yeah. But there was. I also remember a Phantom cartoon from the early 2000s, which had a really sort of like anime style animation in it. These really like elongated characters, but he got pulled through time from the sort of 30s into the future, and it was like the Phantom 2099 kind of deal. And that looked great, but that was terrible as well. So
I mean, anything like that. I don't know if they're still doing it. I'm guessing not, because this was ages ago. I heard they were doing a post-apocalyptic Zorro film.
Oh yes, I had heard about that.
Yeah. I can't imagine. But again, you hear it and you're like, oh yeah, I can see why no one's ever made that, because it sounds terrible.
Yeah, that sounds. You used to go, oh, that sounds, awful. Yeah, I wouldn't watch that.
Like, why on earth would you like? What would make you think like what's the good thing about Zorro? Well, everything, but like I like Zorro, but I hate the setting. No one ever says that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, no one ever sort of says, it's really good, but does it have to be set in sort of like Southern California? So like, well, no, that's sort of part and parcel. Weirdly, I just thought of something that you say about the things and where you see them. I mean, I've just checked. If you look at like Darkwing Duck, which is from the Disney, obviously it was sort of an offshoot of DuckTales. Like he's clearly inspired by the Shadow.
Yeah, I mean he is like he's got the purple of the Phantom with the costume of the Shadow.
Yeah,
but there's things like you'd be so I don't know if it's Freakazoid. Or something similar, where it keeps making shadow references in the cartoon, and you can't
right.
who is it marketed towards? Because it's definitely not kids.
No one knows these jokes. Like no one knows. There's some 80-year-old and that knows these from when they were a kid, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny what the way things pop up, and it's like just to make one person laugh sometimes.
Yeah, the animator, just one animator who put that in was like, that's a good joke.
But I mean, there's a Batman animated series episode.
Oh, the Grey Ghost.
Grey Ghost, yeah, and that's another one. That's a great Pulp sort of example.
Yes, I love that again. Adam West giving his voice to the Grey Ghost. That's a great episode. That is.
It really is.
Yeah, it just seems to happen every now and then. Like I say, these sort of pulp characters just seem to seep through. I mean, I don't know if you've read. I think we may have mentioned it, but Planetary, Warren Ellis's Planetary.
I haven't read it. No. But I know
that's. I mean, firstly, regardless of his recent actions, or the actions he's been found out about recently, that is an awesome book. Like that series is great, and that alludes to all kinds of things. And like Doc Savage is in that. Not called Doc Savage, but they call him other things. Like it's a version of him.
A bit like the Shadow in Rocketeer.
Yeah, very much so. Like
him, but it's him.
Yes, it's the sort of it's Doc Savage in all but express name sort of thing, and it alludes to a whole bunch of other things. Like they go to Dinosaur Island and you see sort of Monster Island, and you see the remains of like Godzilla and all this other stuff. So it's a great series. I highly recommend it. But that's what I'm saying. Like these characters keep popping up because everyone says, "Oh yeah, Superman was the first superhero." Yeah, he was the first comic book superhero, but nothing is ever an original idea.
No.
And these guys came first. The Shadow and Doc Savage and even the Phantom, Buck Rogers. All these guys sort of came way before.
Well, I mean, you keep going back. I mean, look at people like you've got like King Arthur and Merlin and stuff like that. It's you go far back. There's always something.
Yeah, and it is. It's always, isn't it? It comes through. It always sort of moves through time and just changes.
I
With
mean,
each
like
iteration.
Hercules.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It's a really
Jason
good
the
point.
Argonauts, the original Avengers,
Mm.
and they probably weren't even original.
No, these things of myth.
Yeah.
You say like Hercules. Was it the 12
Yeah, the
trials?
Trials of Hercules. I mean, there's
Yeah.
that's all superheroes are, aren't they? Now, like it's like
Hmm.
today's gods, like not in a religious sense, but in story sense.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? So they're mythical tales that are being told. In some cases, literally about gods. But yeah, and I think so. These ones I think would be worth revisiting. I'd love to see them in media in some way again, sort of live
Yeah,
action or.
and there's like
Um,
I think there's definitely. I mean, I do think you'd struggle with say Dick Tracy,
yeah.
because I don't know. I mean, I guess there's ways of doing it, but you can't you can't have Dick Tracy now
No,
in a
not
sense.
well. Part and parcel because of the art style and everything that goes with it. Those exaggerated faces and characters, is
Yeah,
almost like part and parcel of it, isn't it? So
yeah. But
yeah.
you could definitely revisit things like I mean, the Rocketeer. That's easy
Mm.
because it's a timeless piece, I think, in a way. The Shadow, you could easily revisit these kind of properties.
Yeah, someone much better at writing than me could definitely turn these into like a modern take and
Yeah,
figure out a way. Especially weirdly, yes, we've got our superheroes, we've got the MCU and the DCEU and whatever the hell you want, but like, I just think at the moment, um, these heroes, these sort of pulp heroes, almost seem like the right kind of heroes to come up at this time.
yeah,
You know, and like I say, if you were to revisit the Phantom, like surely like you would make him a black guy. Like it just makes total sense. Like
yeah.
why wouldn't you?
Well, yeah. I mean,
Um,
because I'm sure in the books, wasn't he from Africa in the books?
yeah,
Yeah, so it is like it makes so much sense because I think they didn't Dynamite do the last Phantom series, like they did a sort of a newer
mm.
series, and he was black in that.
Yeah, that rings a bell actually. Yeah,
Yeah, and it just makes
so
sense, doesn't it? It's
yeah, yeah. It was the first thing that puzzled me when I was watching it. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
I can't grapple with this. Um, but yeah, there are ways and means of doing it. I think
yeah,
would it make money? Would it make money? I don't know. Maybe not a film, but maybe they could do like a TV show or
yeah. Well, that's it.
do
I
some
mean,
a bit
imagine for
lower.
each one, like there's
Mm,
something.
yeah, maybe one day.
Maybe
But
one.
Matt, we'll round it there. But Matt, thank you very much for joining us on this retrospective. I've really enjoyed going back and sort of watching
Yeah,
films.
no, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
That's been great. So before we go out, just to give Toon Jam a bit of a pop, where can people find it and where can people find you?
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher as well, I think, at Toon Jam Pod on sort of social media. So we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. But yeah, Toon Jam. We talk about cartoons from all eras. It's a bit of fun, a bit of a laugh. So if you're interested, come along, join the journey.
And maybe someday soon you'll do Defenders of the Earth.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
throwing that out
I
there for
mean,
you.
if you want to come on, we can have a classic
I
duo
would
episode.
definitely.
We'll do Defenders of the Earth.
I would love to come on and talk about Defenders of the Earth because I say I haven't watched it in years. So yeah,
We'll sort this out then. I'm sure. Sure, Jay will love doing it.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Matt. And guys, we'll catch you again next time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Another fantastic episode and the rounding out of our retrospective on pulp hero movies of the 90s. Now, why don't you get in contact with us? Let us know what you think. Did we cover them all? Are there other films that we should have covered? Should we have covered Zorro? Should we have covered Steel? There's all kinds of stuff that were rooting around in the 90s. We maybe should have talked about. But let us know. Get in contact. You can find us on Twitter at 20th Century Geek or on Instagram or Facebook. Just log on both of those and look for 20th Century Geek. And we'd really appreciate it. If you like the show, leave us a review. 5-star, 4-star, whatever it is. Just leave a review and let us know what you thought on your podcast catcher. Greatly appreciated. More than that, if you really like the show, this is an independent podcast and we've got to keep the lights on in 20th Century Towers. We have got a Patreon page. If you like to show your support, check out Patreon and again look for 20th Century Geek Podcast, and we're on there. We've got several tiers. From tiers 1 all the way up, you will get to listen to a monthly additional podcast. It's usually just going to be me, might bring others on, but it's called 30-Minute Thoughts. And it's just 30 minutes thinking about a specific topic. It could be anything from a comic, from a book, a movie, an entire genre. It could be anything. It could be an historical event. Second tier, not only gets to listen to it, it gets to vote on what the topic is for that month. The first one was the first issue of Sandman. The second one has been Jaws. Now, the third tier above all that, not only do they get to listen to the show, not only do they get to vote on the monthly podcast, they get to listen in and vote on a show 4 times a year on what I should be doing on 20th Century Geek's main feed. That's the main big chief, if you will, Patreon tier. So go check that out. But other than that, thank you very much for listening. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.